Alright, so welcome back. We're going to get started with the bulk of the subject matter here. And this is kind of what you're going to see from me a lot, is this kind of electronic blackboard. And what we're going to do here is Chapter 1, Section 1, is we're going to want to define statistics. So we're going to have to come up with a definition for statistics. But first I want to talk a little bit more generally about mathematics. Statistics will be using a lot of mathematics, and there's a debate on if it's a full-fledged mathematics or if it's a science that uses mathematics. And so I'm going to talk about mathematics in its own right. Now, the modern definition of mathematics is the study of sets. And we kind of grow up learning sets of numbers, particularly, right? Number sets. I like to think of mathematics as the language of patterns. And it has a historical context. We anthropologists study the language and how people talk about number, and based on certain developmental stages of societies and tribes and different groupings of people, there's different levels of mathematics that come in language. But one of the things that note is the idea of counting comes into play early. And the idea that hunting and gathering societies didn't need to count. They would hunt, and they would get, one, maybe two, many, and very many would be their language for number. Eventually, when technology comes about, and you're not just looking for food sources, but you might want to, fashion clothing, which is a technological advancement, relative advancement, depending on how you view societies and advancement. It's a technological progression in cultures, and at that point you need to know that you need 8 monkey pelts to make a jacket. And so this concept of number became a way of predicting, hey, I caught enough monkeys, I can make a jacket. And so our mathematics language developed from counting, and it had predictive goals. We wanted to predict future results. We wanted to fashion future results from information that we had. Astronomy, my actual research field, was one of the first sciences, because as people moved out of the tropics and into areas that had much larger change of seasons, knowing when animals came and went, knowing the change of time became important. And mathematics developed a geometry and scientific basis. And it's hard to say scientific because most of these early sciences are wrapped up in mythology. But the idea was we wanted to predict the future by looking at a pattern. Now, there are some assumptions we had to make to do that. Would the pattern continue to repeat itself? Was it repetitive? Would it continue to move forward? And so the mathematics that we get in a modern time has looked at the sets of numbers we use and the patterns in sets. And we spend a lot of time developing words. In fact, I tell people a lot of times my job is actually to, kind of reprogram people's brains. I give you language in the terms of numbers. I can say 2 plus 3, and this correlates to counting. Underneath it all, we develop a new language that we can envision or conceptualize. not necessarily envision, but have some analogous representation. And so these symbols form mental thoughts that have predictive power. And so if I have 2 monkey pelts and I get 3 more monkey pelts, I have a total of 5 monkey pelts. And I know if I can make my jacket or not, which is how these tools developed. And so number and mathematics is going to sit within this tool of society to make predictions. It's what we want to do. We want to predict the future, and we want to do it in a way that's beneficial for us. There's some oddness about this. For example, 2 is a noun. But I can't have a 2. 2 does things, it adds and subtracts, and it's a noun, but it's a noun that has to attach to something. I need 2 of something. I need 2 of a measurement. I need 2 monkey pelts, as I was talking about before. And so these become an abstraction for the pattern. And so keep that in mind, that we're going to have to dance between the number being talking about the pattern itself, and then in the thing we attach that pattern to. And that's the biggest jump with mathematics a lot, is jumping between the pattern and what we've attached the pattern to. Now, statistics itself, and I'm going to use the book's definition and build out of that, but statistics can be viewed as a branch of mathematics or a field of study that's separate, and I like to say statistics is the science of observation. And what we're doing is we're using rules to talk about how we observe things. Now, the book is going to take this and give you a slightly bigger definition. It's going to say that statistics is the science of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data to make decisions. This is a pretty good definition. And I will say all of this is observation, and then the to make decisions is the predictive power of observations, which is what, to me, is kind of what sciences want to do. Sciences want to predict. And so the science of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data. And it introduces a new word here that we're also going to need a definition for. And so when we talk about what we're looking at, we're looking at the science of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data. And data is information coming from observations. And the book's going to be a little pedantic with that. It's going to spit out some very particular observations. You can make counts. You can make measurements or responses. And data is equivalent to information, and information is kind of the key to statistics. We are looking at how we get information and what that information portrays. Now, there's particular things we can look at, and I want you to notice the wording here. We have populations. So when I am collecting data, if I have a population, it is the collection of all outcomes, responses, measurements, or counts of interest. If I can go out and get everything, add up everything, I can count everything. I can measure everything. I have a population. Now we'll find that's a hard thing to do in general, is to get populations. And so what we do is we have another collection of things that we have, which is called a sample. And I said mathematics is the study of sets, and this is where the mathematics and statistics come together. We can say that a sample is a subset or part of a population. So, for example, if I want to collect information about statistics classes, I can get the population of all adults in Gardner, Massachusetts, and I can figure out, and I can ask them a questionnaire about their statistic knowledge. And I would go out and I would collect many tens of thousands of surveys to get the population. I would have to get every adult. Well, we know that's hard. You can't get every adult due to timing and scheduling. And so getting every person in a population is called taking a census, where you want everything counted. Generally, we get a sample. We grab a portion of that, and we try to use the sample to tell us what's happening to the whole. And there are ways we can look at this. We can kind of think of, right, like if I have a box here, and this represents every possible response from, let's say, all registered students at MWCC, some response to a survey, then I can have the responses to the survey and those who didn't respond. Right? Some people are not going to respond. And so this would be a sample, because I didn't get everyone to respond. And so the first thing we do when looking at data is we go, did we get everything? If we did, it's the population. If we didn't get everything that we're interested in, we're looking at a sample or a portion of it. And that affects what we can do with it. And so if we make a numerical description of something from a population, we're going to call that a parameter. Notice the nice repetition of the letter P here. So for example, if I get every student at MWCC and I have information on them, a parameter I can get is their average age. And this is something you're going to see, and I'll bring this up as we work our way forward. This is the Greek letter mu. It means average or median a lot. And so you'll see me do this. I'll introduce these slowly, and I'll put up some side videos about what Greek letters we use. There's a tendency that when we talk about things in populations, we're going to use Greek for our variables. And when we talk about samples, we're going to use the Roman. And so let's continue that over here. And if I have a numerical description of a sample, we're going to call that a statistic. Not statistics, but a statistic. And again, notice the repetition of S. In fact, the study of statistics can be said kind of looking at how we sample things to talk about the population. And I can do the same thing. If I look at these responses here, I can say that the average age is a statistic. And notice how I use the Roman letter with a bar over top of it to say average. And so these become kind of how we start looking at information. All right. That's the first part of my notes here. Let me save this out. And I'm going to clear this up for us here, and we'll talk about one more thing that gets us through the first section here. Okay. There we go. All right, and so statistics kind of has two different things that it does. And these are called the branches of statistics. And the first is descriptive statistics. And that is the organizing, or again, let me spell correctly, organizing, summarizing, and displaying of data. This collects the information, it portrays the information, it turns it into numbers that we can deal with, and it makes description. So descriptive statistics talks about what you've measured, but it doesn't make any assumptions about it. That is called inferential statistics. And inferential statistics uses sample data to draw conclusions about a population. If I can only survey 100 people out of 8,000, if I design this survey right, can I say something about this 8,000? And we're going to find that we can, but we have to be careful on the word choice we have. We can talk about how likely. And we'll talk about likelihoods. How confident. And we'll talk about confidence intervals we are. About confidence intervals. And so we'll be able to talk about the population from samples, but we have to do it in a way that gives deference to the fact that we didn't count everything. We're going to spend the first chapter 2 talking about descriptive statistics. And then we're going to have to talk about probability so that we can bring that into inferential statistics. And so we'll work our way through describing things, and then we'll build that up into a good reference set. All right, that's the end of section 1. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to upload this video, and then we'll talk about section 2.